On Tuesday, the Dallas Cowboys signed two free agents, two of them from the UFL. Tonight, we'll break down will that matter? And more importantly, will they be making the roster? Ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it. Here we go. What's up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you in between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with these quick-hitting videos. And today we got some news because the Cowboys made actual roster moves. They signed two free agents, and I was trying to do the math. They had signed three free agents before today. It was Eric Kendricks, Royce Freeman, Ezekiel Elliott, who counts as an outside free agent at the end of the day, right? Because he was with the New England Patriots. But three free agents had been signed up to this point. If I'm missing somebody, you better let me know in the chat, by the way, in the comments, because I cannot remember. I don't think I am forgetting anybody, but I think I'm right here. But the Cowboys signed two more guys. It's linebacker Willie Harvey Jr., and cornerback Gareon Conley. Here's the biggest takeaway, and we're going to break it down on tonight's show from these two moves. They are both 53-man roster candidates. And I think that is important for us to acknowledge right from the get-go, because these are UFL signings. And a lot of times people don't know how to feel about that. And it's fair. It's very difficult to evaluate how a player will perform at a certain level and then try to project that into the NFL level. That's why drafting is unbelievably hard. And even with drafting, you can, and some people are more optimistic than others in this sense, right? And that's where the art comes to play. But when you're drafting somebody out of college, you know which traits are going to develop, you know which traits you are betting on, right? Somebody might be tall and fast, and that is it. And he might be drafted in the 7th round, in the 6th round, just based on those two traits. But with the guys that are in the UFL, some of them are not particularly young, right? Gareon Conley is not out of college. He was drafted in 2017 in the 1st round, by the way. We'll get to that. Willie Harvey has 2 seasons where he's played NFL football with the Cleveland Browns. Only 4 games, but he's been at the NFL level. So you know that the projections are more limited, and maybe the right word is the upside is much more limited. But these are dudes that could play in the NFL. And not only that, they have played in the NFL. Let's start with the first one, Willie Harvey Jr. What can we expect from him? I think he's got a shot at the roster just by looking at the Cowboys linebacker room. Because as things stand right now, I remember in my way too early roster projection, which was out in May, right after the NFL draft and the UDFA signings, had my 53-man roster projection, put it out there. I had the Cowboys carrying only 4 linebackers. That didn't feel right, if I'm being honest with you. Maybe with Dan Quinn running the defense, it might have felt perfect. But with Mike Zimmer, I am guessing they're going to want more bodies on the roster. So let me say this very quickly. You've got Eric Kendricks, Damon Clark, Overshown, and Marist, the rookie out of Notre Dame, as your 4 roster locks at linebacker. After that, I think there's going to be a competition between Damian Wilson, who is a veteran, former Cowboy as well, Willie Harvey Jr., the UFL signing, and the UDFAs, who look much more like long shots at this point. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and act as if I have evaluated Mr. Willie Harvey Jr. myself. But John Owning is absolutely one of the best evaluators in Cowboys media. And he had a very interesting scouting report to share with the world over on Twitter X. We're not going to read every single line, but just let me say very quickly that I liked John Owning pointing out displayed, and I quote, notable improvements rushing the passer in recent years and made an impact this year in the UFL as an off-ball blitzer and even mixed in some effective reps off the edge. To be specific, Willie Harvey Jr. had 4 sacks in the UFL as a member of the St. Louis Battlehawks. He also had 6 pass deflections. He had the second most tackle for losses in the UFL, led the UFL in tackling as well. And I just, based on the very limited clips I've seen from Willie Harvey and the highlight tape that he himself uploaded to YouTube, you see a versatile player. And I don't think you want Willie Harvey Jr. starting in the NFL, but I could absolutely see him earn a spot in certain sub packages because, as John Owning says, he's a good off ball blitzer. And with Mike Zimmer, we're going to see a whole lot more from that. Dan Quinn liked to blitz his linebackers, but if you recall, he did it more than anything else to manipulate protection schemes more than he wanted the linebacker to get to the quarterback, right? Whenever Leighton Vander Esch was sent as a dog to go hunt the quarterback, the opposing quarterback, it was mostly just to get the center to work towards him and leave Micah Parsons freed up on a one-on-one situation versus a guard or the Marcus Lawrence or this and that. It wasn't really that Dan Quinn was betting on Vander Esch to get to the guy. He was just wanting to manipulate protection schemes. With Zimmer, that's going to be different. Zimmer is going to want his linebackers to go get the QB because that's a lot of what he does with the double A gap looks that people like to talk about. But Eric Kendricks is also rushed off the edge under Mike Zimmer. And there's a lot of looks where you've got a safety rushing off of the edge. There's going to be much more from that with Mike Zimmer. And it seems like Will Harvey Jr. fits the bill. So right off the gate, we might be looking at a scheme fit for the Cowboys here. Some more relevant notes here from John Owning. He said, not someone I want matching pass catchers or playing man all too often. He says he could see him playing as a strong side linebacker or the weak side linebacker. We'll see what his role ends up being. But overall, John Owning is on board, it seems to me, with this signing. And he talks about the improvement, says good enough athlete who has shown some promise in a couple of areas. He's undersized, though. We're talking about this 5'11", 229 pounds, and 35-inch arms. So, not exactly, let me get myself back on the screen here. Not exactly the best athlete ever or the linebacker with the most upside, but somebody that had already been in the NFL, had already stuck around an NFL roster for a few years with the Cleveland Browns, and then goes to the UFL and produces at the league's highest level. He's worth taking a shot on him. Even when the UFL season was ongoing, there were UFL reporters, UFL analysts, and overall football analysts that were like, Will Harvey Jr. is one of the top players in the league, and he might get another shot at the NFL. So that's a huge positive for me. Low risk, high reward gamble with very, very little risk. And I could see the Cowboys carrying a fifth linebacker. And if that is the case, then Willie Harvey Jr. might be that guy. Now, of course, he doesn't have to impress Mike Zimmer and Mike Zimmer only. He likely has to impress John Fassel as well, because if you're making the roster as a fifth linebacker, then you better play some special teams, which is obvious. Now, so, man, we'll see what happens with Willie Harvey Jr., but don't write this off, is what I'm trying to say, as just another body for camp. It's more than that, and he has a legitimate shot at making the roster. The same goes for Gareon Conley, who was not reported on. The Cowboys actually announced it through their public relations social media accounts. And we heard Gareon Conley is also signing with the Cowboys. He's also signed, actually, with the Cowboys, as well as Willie Harvey Jr., and the easiest way to know Conley can play at the NFL level is that he was a first-round draft pick out of Ohio State. National champion, by the way, with the Buckeyes. He gets to the NFL, and it's a rocky road for him. Since pre-draft, it was rocky because he was accused of rape, and then a grand jury ruled not to charge Conley. And then his NFL career starts, drafted in the first round by the Raiders, in spite of all of those concerns, because he wasn't ruled innocent until later in the year. So he was drafted as these accusations were ongoing, drafted in the first round. That goes away, the off-the-field drama. And we get to the season, and it's a rocky road from him right away because he suffers a chin injury. He's active for 2 games in the NFL season, right? And it's kind of like an on and off thing where he gets injured, misses some time, comes back, and then ends up missing the rest of the season. Fast forward to 2018, there's a few more injuries in there, but he plays his most football that particular year. In 2019, he's traded from the Raiders to the Houston Texans, and he was temporarily benched early in his career, but then, traded to the Texans. And when he's with the Texans, he suffers a scary looking neck injury. They take him off of the field on a stretcher. And that feels like the end of his career, right? That feels like that is it for Gareon Conley because things weren't going exactly his way. He had a long injury history by then. Stays on the Texans, but he's released he's played on the season-ending injury reserve for the following season as well. The 5th-year option is never picked up. And that is it, right? Gareon Conley has not played an NFL game since 2019. He goes to the UFL, has a good season. He's not an all UFL player like Willie Harvey Jr. is, but he produces at a high level. And as a former first-round draft pick, perhaps at a healthier point of his life after years away from the NFL, he's worth taking a flyer on as well. And it's not like the Cowboys have a clear-cut number 4 at corner, which is what I would bring up. And again, the talent is there. The measurables are there. Because otherwise, this kid wouldn't have been a first-round draft pick in the NFL. You don't get drafted that way. So he's got what it takes to play at the league, and you're not asking him to be a starter because you've got Trevon Diggs, you've got Daron Bland, Jordan Lewis. The question we should be asking is Eric Scott Jr. better than Gareon Conley? Is Israel Mukuamu better than Gareon Conley? Is 5th-round rookie Kalen Carson better than Gareon Conley? And nobody can tell me that, yes, they are better without us getting to training camp. We got to see what happens first at camp. It's that easy. And I believe Gareon Conley could find himself on the roster and could find himself throwing his hat on the ring for the cornerback 4 discussion and for the cornerback 4 debate. We'll see how all of these plays out. But these are 2 players whose careers appear to be dead, and the Cowboys are giving them a chance to resurrect those careers. So I'm excited. I criticize the Cowboys for a lot of what they do, right? I don't like how they approach free agency. I don't like how they've done things with the contract extensions. But if there's one thing that I do like about them is that they are willing to take these kind of risks. And a lot of times I get it. It doesn't pay off. I know people criticize his their second round draft strategy, and that's completely fair. But they've gotten Brandon Aubrey this way through the USFL. They got Kevontae Turpin this way. And Turpin is not only returning kicks, he's playing offense. So I could see this happening. And also, I'm happy that the UFL was successful enough to be exporting so many players to the NFL. Because there's a lot of teams signing UFL guys, and not only specialists. So I think that's exciting for pro football across the United States. I think that's exciting in a lot of levels for football worldwide. There's a lot of FBS players, man, FCS players as well, that are looking desperately for an opportunity to keep playing football. And I've seen it with my own eyes with Mexico football, for example. There are guys, and with this I'll end the show, there are guys that come to Mexico and they play, and I'm talking about FBS guys, right? Jeremy Johnson, former Auburn quarterback, plays in Chihuahua. Malik Stanley, former Louisiana Tech player, played in Chihuahua. And there's a lot of those examples that are former NFL players in the LFA, by the way. But anyways, they come to Mexico. They play a 10-game season, 8-game season, somewhere along those numbers, depending on the year. And then they go to Europe right after the Mexico season is over. And they play another 10 games in Europe. It's nonstop. Like, some of these players are out there hustling. And I love to hear that a league like the UFL is likely going to keep bringing more and more opportunities. And I say so because, for example, there have been players from the LFA to make the jump to the UFL. So as NFL fans, sometimes we might not perceive that world of pro football, but it exists, and it's pretty fun to see it grow this way. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I will leave you. Hopefully these are good moves by the Cowboys. Let me know in the comments, which are you most excited about, Willie Harvey Jr. or Gareon Conley? and I'll be checking what your replies are later tonight. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.